to take out your handphone because we are going to give you a QR code for you to scan. It will be presented right here on the big screen. Do you mind to scan the QR code? I believe there'll be documents inside this QR code, and that would help the process throughout this forum. Thank you. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, if you could move to the front and take the seats right in front of you that are empty, that would be greatly appreciated, as there are many more people who will be coming to this hall. So in terms of logistics, it will be helping us a lot. So if you don't mind, please move to the front if you see any empty seats right in front of you. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, thank you for being on time and early. We apologize for the slight delay, but we want you to fix your eyes on the screen as we play a safety video because we want to be safe when we are here, right here in this building. Over to you, crew.
Welcome to Kuala Lumpur Convention Center. Your safety is important to us. We ask that you take a moment to watch this short safety video. Emergency exits are located throughout the venue and are easily identified by the emergency exit sign. Please take a moment to locate your nearest emergency exit. For everyone's safety, please keep the pathways and aisles clear at all times. In the event of an emergency, the alarm will be triggered and the warning light will flash. Please stay calm and wait for further instructions. If evacuation is required, an announcement will be made. Please move to the nearest emergency exit. Do not use the lifts. Follow the instructions given by our team members. and follow the emergency exit signs until you are outside the building, where you will be directed to the assembly point. The assembly point is located in the KLCC Park, where you will receive further instructions. Should you require any first aid assistance, please approach our team members. Kuala Lumpur Convention Center is a non-smoking venue, and smoking is not permitted at any time in any part of the venue. We wish you a good day and an engaging experience today.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're just waiting for a short bit right now. Please be patient as I get the cue from the event organizer to start our show today. Our panel will be ready up on stage shortly. But ladies and gentlemen, for those who are here, welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm Melissa Ong, your MC for this morning. And I would like to ask every one of you to move in front if it's possible so that the people at the back can join us easily from behind. If you have space in front of you, please kindly move to the front so that we can fill up the spaces right in front, and that would help ease our logistics. Thank you. If you're right in the middle and you have an empty seat next to you, please move one seat so that the others can join us quickly. Thank you. to Cyber DSA 2024. I'm Melissa Ong, your MC for this forum. I trust you had a good breakfast, and thank you once again for coming early and on time. And we'll get this forum started. I trust that you had a good breakfast and ready to start our first forum of the day, building trust in Malaysia's digital journey. Well, in Malaysia's ambitious pursuit of digital transformation, the importance of building trust cannot be overstated. As the nation navigates through the complexities of a rapidly evolving digital landscape, trust forms the cornerstone upon which successful integration and adoption of digital technologies rests. Now, it is my pleasure now to invite Encik Roshdi Haji Ahmad, Chief Operating Officer, Cybersecurity Malaysia, for his opening remarks. Would you please, sir? A round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, as Encik Roshdi takes the stage.
Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and salam sejahtera. Datuk Dan and panelists, good morning, esteemed guests, industry leaders, policymakers and experts. It's good. I'm happy to see a good turnout today for this forum. It is a privilege and honor to welcome you to this pivotal forum, Building Trust in Malaysia's Digital Journey, which is part of Cyber DSA. It's going to be about this Cyber DSA is going to be happening about 3 days until the 8th of August. You know, today we stand as a crucial juncture in our digital transformation journey, and your presence here today signifies our collective commitment, our shared commitment to fostering a trustworthy digital ecosystem in Malaysia. As we'll delve into our discussion today, we must recognize, must understand the growing importance of digital trust as the cornerstone, the foundation of our digital economy. Digital trust is not merely an abstract concept, it is a fundamental necessity. It is essential and is vital for fostering innovation, attracting investment, ensuring the protection of our citizens' data. Ladies and gentlemen, according to a report on digital trust by McKinsey, organizations that prioritize digital trust are more likely to experience growth, with research indicating that those best positioned to build digital trust can achieve annual growth rates of at least 10% of their top and bottom lines. Now, throughout our discussion, we will explore several key themes that emerge from our earlier sessions. First, we will deepen our understanding of digital trust. This multifaceted concept encompasses the confidence, the trust that users have in the security, privacy, and reliability of the digital systems and transactions. A clear example of this can be seen in the financial sector, where our institution have implemented robust cybersecurity measures and transparent data usage policies to enhance customer confidence. Without this trust, our digital initiative risk stagnation. Second, we will address the dangers, the risks posed by a trust deficit. As highlighted in our forum, a lack of trust can significantly hinder progress and innovation. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to bring the very recent CrowdStrike incident as a stark reminder a sobering reminder of the consequences of failing to maintain digital trust. What we know from the news, this was not a cyber attack, but actually a failure of the system, a failure of the processes. Regardless of why it happened, such incident not only damage reputations, but also lead to significant financial losses and a decline in customer loyalty. Ensuring users feel safe and confident when interacting with digital services is crucial and essential for driving nationwide adoption and engagement in our digital economy. Finally, we will unlock the vast potential of a trusted digital Malaysia. Ladies and gentlemen, building digital trust is not just a goal, it's a catalyst, it's a driver for our digital transformation. Trust enhances user confidence, promotes innovation, and ensures the success of our digital initiatives. For example, companies that invest in transparency regarding their data usage, such as providing clear information about how customer data is utilized, are more likely to retain customers and enhance their brand reputation. As we navigate the complexities, the challenges of the digital landscape, we must establish a robust digital trust framework grounded in ethical conduct, transparency, and accountability. My last page. I would like to emphasize the timeliness and crucial nature of our focus on building trust by leveraging cutting-edge technologies like blockchain, AI. We can enhance trust and security, positioning Malaysia as a leader, as a global leader in the digital economy. This forum marks a significant and crucial steps towards fostering a robust and trustworthy digital ecosystem in Malaysia. The insight we gain today will serve as a foundation, a strong foundation for future initiatives aimed at strengthening digital trust across our nation. Ladies and gentlemen, as we embark on this journey together, let us embrace the challenges with a spirit of innovation and collaboration. I eagerly look forward to rich discussion ahead. We will work closely with the Ministry of Digital and the relevant stakeholders and the collective actions we will take to ensure a secure and reliable digital future for all of us, for all Malaysians. Thank you, and I wish all of you a meaningful, productive dialogue ahead. Assalamualaikum and salam sejahtera. Thank you.
A round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Encik Roshdi. Ladies and gentlemen, from bolstering cybersecurity resilience in enhancing consumer confidence in digital services, trust is not merely a desirable attribute, but an essential catalyst for sustainable growth and innovation. This engaging session promises to provide valuable insights into how digital trust can drive economic growth, enhance cybersecurity measures, and foster greater digital adoption across Malaysia. Now, without further ado, it is my pleasure to invite to the stage this morning's panel. And we will start off with the moderator, Dato' Dan Iku, and he is the CEO of World Innovation Technology and Services Alliance, to come on stage, and of course for the rest of the panel as well. Please, gentlemen. And for your information, ladies and gentlemen, the panel consists of Wan Roshaini Wan Abdullah, CTO Cybersecurity Malaysia, Kartik Ramanathan, Senior VP Cyber and Intelligence Solutions, Asia Pacific MasterCard, Eric Fu, PICOM Councillor and Deputy Chair, PICOM Cybersecurity Chapter, and also Mr. Murugesan, CEO and Co-founder, Novum CS Sdn Bhd. So gentlemen, please make yourself comfortable on stage, and the technical crew will pass the mics around. Over to you, Dato' Dan. A round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, for our panel discussion.
Thank you. Selamat pagi, salam Malaysia Madani. I understand that's the new phrase. And my friend, Cik Rosdi Ahmad, Cyber Security Malaysia. Ladies and gentlemen, it is very nice to see a packed crowd this morning. And I'm very pleased to be here. So welcome to our panel discussion. And my name is Dan, as it's been introduced. I wanted to say a few words to introduce the topic. I will then have each of the moderators spend 3 minutes to make their pitch on the important aspects of what they have to say. We'll then get into a Q&A. We will cover 4 key areas. These will be the introduction of digital trust, because it could be a topic that not everybody is familiar with. So we'll get that over and done with. And then move on to opportunities and challenges posed or that digital trust faces. We'll move on to building and sustaining trust, because from as is where we are today, we need to get to be where we want to be headed. And then we will end with a vision for the future. What does the future hold? Then we will take questions from the audience. Hopefully you are preparing questions, and that we will have this panel of experts answer them. So I want to quickly say that in our increasingly interconnected world, digital trust is the cornerstone of interactions. It is very easy to lose and very hard to gain. Online and offline, the digital trust encompasses the confidence. Often we hear the word confidence connected with the discussion of trust, which is at the same time important, but also unfortunate, because confidence, the root word of that, con, is what has led to scams that have eroded trust, both digitally as well as in the analog world. This trust is essential for smooth functioning of our economies, societies, and daily lives. In fact, it is said that within the next few years, the number of devices that are connected to the internet will reach 75 billion. So these IoT devices have the potential to create and cause a lot of disruption, because if they're not secured, if they cannot be trusted, then botnets can be created based off of these devices' abilities to then attack, create all kinds of chaos. Yeah. So let me just provide you with some compelling global facts and figures. According to a report by PwC, 84% of consumers say they need more transparency and control over how their data is used. The World Economic Forum estimates that cybercrime will cost the global economy $10.5 trillion annually by 2025. A study by Edelman found that 75% of people globally are worried about misinformation or false information being used as a weapon. So serious threats, serious concerns that we should have. And yet, threats with over 2,200 cyber attacks occurring daily, that's 1 every 39 seconds. It's clear that our digital landscape is full of peril. There are data privacy concerns, there are ethical issues, there are deep fakes, and it's not just about data, it is also about how when you transact, how when you interact. So it's about systems, it's about when you shop, it's about when you provide information. Particularly in our country, And I've lived in an environment where people are concerned about even providing their social security number. Here, every single place you go to, they want your IC. And I'm so uncomfortable with that. If they ask for your IC and they want to keep it, what are they going to do with it? There is the concept of trust really erodes in that culture and environment where you don't know what they'll do with your information. Yeah. So these are challenges, and generative AI lately has introduced even more challenges potentially with misinformation, deep fakes. Today, you can use a sampling of somebody's voice and then create fake conversations and even moving images, videos. You've seen Sora, you've seen ChatGPT, etc. And there are biases, unfairness, intellectual property misappropriation. So again, other fears. And yet, it is not all dark. There are opportunities as well. The innovation in content creation, enhanced personalization, obviously the security type features. We'll talk about this, and hopefully the panelists will highlight some of these important things that are not just dark, but also bright. As an eternal optimist, I always feel that our industry is one in which we have to wear shades because the future is so bright. So with that, I want to quickly introduce the wonderful panel that is gathered here this morning. I have with us this morning Cik Wan Roshaimi Wan Abdullah, the CTO of Cybersecurity Malaysia. I have Mr. Eric Fu. He is the PICOM Counselor and Deputy Chair of the PICOM Cybersecurity Chapter. Karthik Ramanathan, who is the Senior Vice President of Cyber and Intelligence Solutions, Asia Pacific, MasterCard. Last and not least, Murugasan Thangaratnam, the CEO of Novum CS. These are the experts. They are the ones who will answer your questions. I'm just here to guide them, hopefully, and maybe ask some of the questions that you have in mind. With that, our discussion will delve into the multifaceted aspects of digital trust, and I look forward to an exciting session. Let's get started. Okay, so Cik Wan, your 3 minutes.
Good morning. Thank you, Datuk Moderator, and thank you, Puan Chairman as well, Mas MC. And thank you everyone for being here to Cyber DSA. As being introduced, my name is Wan Roshaimi from Cybersecurity Malaysia. And I think Datuk Dan was talking about something very interesting just now, talking about asking your IC number. I think it's very common to all of us here, and it sometimes becomes a joke that we are so trusted in this thing. When people ask your IC, we just put it through and give your IC number to everyone. It's just like, there's nothing wrong in doing that. But in particular, in this digital world, it is wrong because there are so many confidential information that needs to be protected there. But anyway, I guess from our perspective, when we talk about digital trust, what I want to impart to all the audience here is that we are looking beyond just cybersecurity. We are looking more into the digital world and how can we be happily living and working together in the digital space. So what is digital trust? From my perspective, I think the keyword there is the confidence. The level of confidence that we have when we do our interactions, the level of confidence that we have in our products, our services that we are transacting. Giving a good example, then when you do, I think post-pandemic that everybody's doing online shopping, and then when you do your the payment and etc., you order everything online. You never see the product. You never talk to the people, to the seller. But in the end, you choose what you want to buy. You key in your credit card numbers. You send and you buy it, and you're expecting that to be delivered to your home, nice and safe. That is trust. And that is digital trust in one aspect. They're more than that. So it's about looking at how safe is that transaction or work, how secure the data that you put in that transaction, and how can you be sure that it's been delivered to you timely and in time and things like that. So this is one aspect that I think we want to talk about. But I want to leave before I pass to the others. Is that I want to get everybody into the space that we are now looking beyond cybersecurity. We're looking from the perspective of ethical digital trust as consumers. So I leave that with you all, and we can get back to that topics at some stage. Thank you.
Thank you, Cik Wan. Eric, please.
Good morning, everyone. Let me start by also giving the definition that I picked up from the World Economic Forum about digital trust. So digital trust, according to that definition, is the individual's expectation that digital technologies and services, including the company providing them, will uphold the expectations and also the societal responsibilities and value. So I think that is sort of, encompasses, from the entire ecosystem, from the users, the service providers, that whatever information, whatever data provided on the digital platform is secured, is protected, and all the interests from all the stakeholders are taken care of. I think there are three aspects, in my opinion, that currently is influencing from the context of Malaysia. The three aspects that I think is currently that is being monitored include the transparency, the privacy, and redressability. So let me just quickly delve into a little bit details on these three aspects, right? So transparency is basically the, how the users are being empowered, when they go onto the digital platform. How are they being protected when they do transactions, when they interact online, that they know that they are protected, the data flow is being visible, or at least being informed, how the data is collected, what data is collected, and how it's going to be used. So I think that kind of transparency is important, right? That's the first part. Then privacy. So digital platform is powered by technologies, right? So the users has to be assured that the technologies put in place is good enough to protect from, the beginning of their access until the end of the transaction whenever they're online, right? So that also should be assured from the privacy standpoint. And last but not least, the redressability. So what do I mean by redressability? Basically, any digital platform, no matter how much investment you put in place, how much technology you put in place to protect the environment, there will still be a chance that it will be breached, right? So in the event there's a cyber attack or cyber breach, how do you ensure that the individuals or even an organization that has been harmed through the cyber breach can recover, and maybe individuals can be compensated fairly? So I think these three aspects we need to work together closely from the private and the public sector to also monitor, to also measure the success in order to gain the trust from all the users. So this is my perspective, Dato'. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Karthik.
Good morning. Thank you, everyone, for having me on this panel and for spending time here on this panel. So at a very basic level, I think some of the participants have already talked about it. Digital trust is almost like an invisible bond between those who provide digital services and those who receive them. So if you think about the fact that we are all consumers of businesses, we are consumers of the government. So the people who need to give us the trust include those two entities at a very broad level in terms of governments and businesses providing services that we can trust. Now, trust is a very broad term, and there are probably 3 or 4 big aspects that come out in terms of what we want in trust. Now, I'm going to make it a little bit about what you expect in one of the big pillars of digital journeys, which is payments. If you travel, let's say, to the other end of the world, let's say to Brazil, and you carry a card in your wallet, you should be able to make a transaction in a shop in that place. The shopkeeper should be comfortable giving the goods over to you, knowing fully well that they will be compensated, and you should have the confidence that your data is safe and that you will be able to pay for those items just with the tap of a card. Now, that's the business that MasterCard has been in for the last 50 years. It's all built on that trust, right? And when you think of how to build this trust, it basically comes down to a few important factors. I think one obviously is security. You need to make sure that what you built is secure and it cannot be misused. That's one obvious part. The second piece is what he touched upon, which is privacy. You want to make sure that your data is being used to the extent it is required. No incremental data is being given, and whatever data is being given is being used only for those right purposes. The third factor then becomes reliability. How often can you trust this thing? Will it work every single time? Or you walk into a shop, every third shop your card works and the other 2 times it doesn't work, you're never going to use it. So how can you make sure? The same thing with any services that you use. If a product has to be used, it needs to work on a consistent basis. So reliability becomes the third important part. And then there is a fourth part, which is a broader theme. I call it transparency, but it basically comes down to the fact that the right things will be done, right? What do I mean by right things will be done? The fact that the technology that is being used will be used ethically. The fact that there is compliance and somebody is looking after the fact that things are being done correctly. All these become fundamental pillars of how you build trust. And it doesn't matter whether you're a business, whether you're a government, these factors become extremely important. I'll finish with this last part, which is beyond this, it comes down to a very important part of the recipient, which is the attitude which the recipient brings into the ecosystem, which comes down to what are the culture, what are the expectations, right? And what are the interaction model that they use to, and what pace of change are they comfortable with? All these become an extremely interesting dynamic. And if you realize, I talked very little about cybersecurity in this entire piece. It's an underlying cornerstone, but digital trust is moving way beyond just having cybersecurity hygiene. And that's something for all of us to remember. Thank you.
Thank you. Muru.
Thanks, Dato. Thanks everyone for taking the time to being here, and thanks for the organizers for having me on the panel, esteemed panel. And it's tough always being the last guy because everyone has stolen your thunder. I was actually going to talk about the definition of digital trust, Eric, but then you took that, so I have to delete that. But that's not how I started I'm going to start my session. I want to quote Cybersecurity Malaysia's CEO earlier, Tuan Rushdie. He said something very interesting. He said, trust is not an abstract word. So I think we need to first understand what is trust. Oxford Dictionary definition, firm belief in the reliability, truth, or ability of someone or something. Let's face facts, trust has been around for a long time. It's been around as long as mankind has been around, and it's been around as long as relationships have been around. And I think, personally for me, trust is something that is built during a crisis, not during the good times. So to give you a very recent example is the IT outage, which also Tuan Roshi mentioned earlier. There was an opportunity for the organizations that were involved in this outage to earn the trust of people, because there was a crisis, and how you react to the crisis is what builds trust. Your response to the crisis is what builds trust. So I leave it to your own good judgment whether there was actually trust built after the outage. Because when there is denial, there is the passing of the buck, there is no accountability, then there's no trust. So I think that's key when you're talking about digital trust, because it's the entire ecosystem. If we talk about security, I run a security company that's been around for 33 years, and we started off with physical security and then worked all the way up to systems, to perimeter, to the whole works, and then comes information security, network security, cyber security. Now, and today we are speaking about digital security, but there's one constant word: security. At the end of the day, that constant word remains. Likewise, I think the last panel at last year's Cyber DSA, I was also on the panel. I moderated the panel, and we spoke about zero trust. Today, we have moved on and come down to a higher standard, which is digital trust. But the constant word again is trust. So how do you actually build the trust? So I just want to say one thing before I pass on to the moderator. Trust is earned. It's not sold. Okay, so that has to be very clear. Today we are talking about all this stuff in trust in systems like it's a product. It's not a product. Trust has to be earned, and earning the trust is what builds the entire ecosystem. Thanks.
Thank you. So the original plan was to have everyone speak for 3 minutes, make a pitch, and then we go into what is digital trust. But since the topic has been covered largely, and the factors around what makes up digital trust has been covered, let us move on to opportunities and challenges. And I want to start that area by just showing you, you may not be able to see this, but I recently took a Rapid KL train and couldn't help but notice that one of the ads that appeared on the TV screen on the train is, ingat, sesiapa boleh menyamar dalam talian, jangan layan jika tak kenal. Basically, it's to warn consumers about scams. Yeah, it's interesting that you don't see such warnings about analog situations. We know crime exists. We know robberies happen. We know that in the real world, in the physical world, these things happen as well. And yet there is this seems to be a greater fear with regards to scams, with regards to online theft and stuff like that. So let's use that as the opening to what challenges exist today, because we want to understand the as-is situation in Malaysia. What is the current situation with regards to trust and digital trust in Malaysia before we can build a case of where we want to go and how to get there. So, but let's mix it up a little bit so that we won't have, Muru, you going last. I'll take you to go second. Let me start with Kathy. Why don't you go first and talk from a consumer point of view? You may not be super conversant with the situation in Malaysia, but from a MasterCard point of view.
Sure.
Please.
So as much as I'm going to be talking about it from a MasterCard, what we see around the region perspective, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to be looking at how many heads nod when I say some of these themes, and I'll see if it's true for Malaysia. What are the factors that affect trust in a fairly fundamental way across all these markets? One of them, like I think 2 or 3 people mentioned on the panel, is scams, right? Scams is probably very fundamental to a lot of different things, because it is not just around payments. It is not just around a digital ecosystem. It goes to the fundamentals of what a digital journey is. If my data gets stolen or my power to interact gets compromised, somebody takes over my account, that is a very fundamental way in which trust in a digital journey is compromised. Therefore, at that point of time, the customer loses trust, not just in digital payments, digital interactions with the government, anything digital, storing data digitally, everything looks bad, right? So from that perspective, scams is probably the one single topic that I've had discussions with most markets across Asia, especially in Southeast Asia. So that's definitely one. I think the other big piece is there are lots of cybersecurity attacks that become headline news, like the recent one that we just saw, which technically is not cybersecurity attacks, but it goes back to 2 factors which I talked about, which is how secure is the ecosystem, how reliable is the ecosystem. In this case, it is about reliability. Any of these 2 factors get affected, it again goes back to how much of trust is there in the ecosystem. These are probably the 2 most common themes that I'm seeing across the entire region. And at least in the case of Malaysia, I've had discussions with various stakeholders on scams as being an extremely big piece. And the last item that I'll talk about is social media, and where people's trust in social media is misinformation, the misuse of generative AI, the misuse of advanced technology as a generic theme I think that's probably the third biggest factor that comes to, these are great things that are used in the right way, but there are obviously various factors there. The criminals are probably one step ahead in trying to use it for the wrong ways. So how is the journey of technology, and how is it being managed in such a way that it gives a net benefit to society at large? I think those are probably the three things that I'll say is pretty important in terms of the overall themes. I don't know how many heads nodded, but I'm guessing those three would resonate.
Thank you. From a business point of view, Muru, can you talk about the as-is situation with regards to digital trusts in our country?
I think the as-is, I think a majority of people are just now getting used to this term digital trust. And the fact that we are saying building digital trust also tells us that we are working from a position of a starting point. So there may be a lack of trust at the moment. And I think we are going through that journey of actually trying to build the trust and come up with proper ecosystem. I just want to quickly three questions normally you'll ask any business. And when I say a business, I'm not limiting it to only the private sector. I'm also talking about the public sector. It could also be the government at large. How well are you enabling people in your organization to help build digital trust? How well are you engaging business processes to build digital trust? And how well are your controls keeping pace with emerging technology? So I think these are the key questions businesses are now going through. I think generally speaking, there is a discord between different working levels. So if you take an organization, if you're talking about business specifically, there is a lack of communication between the board of directors and the C-suites. And then there's lack of knowledge probably in procurement and at the human resource level. Then there's further lack of knowledge at the legal department. So this is what's making it a bit difficult on actually building an ecosystem that ultimately promotes digital trust. So I think this is something that needs to be worked on. There needs to be, at the end of the day, the only thing I can think of is education, awareness, a constant push towards getting everyone to be aligned. I think that's one of the issues. The other thing is, I think the people process technology part of business has been there. Personally, for me, it's all been too tech-centric. I think there's too much focus on technology all this while. People have started realizing now, and they've actually started saying that it's people and processes are much more important. But now there's another additional layer called governance. So governance is pretty easy to talk about if that's your starting point. But if it's the final pillar in your entire journey, then it becomes a problem, because then you're talking about changes in mindset. So I think that's one of the things, the trends that I see when I speak to businesses. You know, the C-level, typically the person who's actually the product owner understands what he needs. He understands what he needs to do to build digital trust. But convincing the guys who sign the checks is always the tough part about it. You know, because they look at things in a different way. You know, it's always ROI, bottom line, shareholder value, and all that stuff. So I think finding that balance in business is challenging for people who are actually talking about stuff like digital security and digital trust. So that's the trend that I see. But probably the solutions we can talk about later.
Thank you. Eric, can you address opportunities from an industry point of view?
Okay, so I think the trust, to start off, the trust level, I think in the general public, in my opinion, is probably like, 50-50 kind of ratio. But at the same time, most consumer has given not many choices if they want to do the day-to-day activities, from shopping online to doing banking activities online using the mobile app, right, or using the computer. So, so the challenges are there, as discussed, but there are also opportunities, right? So if the trust level goes up, then a lot more innovation, a lot more services can be offered to the consumer and the general public, including the government agencies, right? So a lot more transaction can be simplified, can be automated, and also with the security, technology put in place, all the transactions and interactions online can also be more secure. So I think the opportunities are there with the technology like blockchain, like Gen AI, machine learning, and so on. And all these will further enhance the security and also the trust level. I think as discussed also, trust is to be earned and not to be demanded, right? So I think from the service provider standpoint, I think from the design, from the architecting of the infrastructure, from the on the platform, has to put in mind that ensure the entire customer journey or the customer experience has to be secured. So how do we ensure that? I think that is the opportunities and the challenges that most organizations face from the service provider standpoint and also from the consumer standpoint, which I think need to be further addressed moving forward.
Thank you, Eric. Now, Chik Wan. So from a policy standpoint, what are the key challenges and opportunities in building trust within our digital ecosystem?
Yeah, thank you. So I think so far we've looked at a number of things now. I think one of the things that Muru has said, the trust is earned, and then what Eric has said as well, trust is earned. And how do we actually earn the trust? It's not simply, okay, please trust me and things like that. And from country perspective, from a government perspective, at least there are three areas that when we talk about trust, we have to beef up some of these areas. And going back to Muru again, you mentioned about security is always there, right? And therefore, you cannot run away in having a good data protection and cybersecurity as well. What does it mean by that? Meaning that every day, you have to ensure that you have a very robust infrastructure in place. When you do any services and design any products, build your organization infrastructure, you must have a very robust infrastructure. So people can know that you are doing something right. And that's where trust can be earned. And another area is about having a very robust and resilient incident response. Because when something happens, if you don't react accordingly or timely, there go the trust. You look at from the recent incidents where even though the outage is around 80 minutes, but there are companies that couldn't recover within time, within their respective RTOs. There are companies that just recover. There are companies that I came to know that recover within an hour. It's probably because they are small companies, but the question is that you need to have a very robust incident response handling in ensuring that your consumers, your customers, your people trust you. Another area is about what Eric has mentioned as well about transparency. I think everybody is talking about transparency, and this comes about privacy as well. And how can you ensure that people trust you when it comes to transparency? So first thing you can do is, of course, like any other regulations, you must have the compliance. Talk about governance, every company is, you have to have compliance to certain standards and regulations. In Malaysia, we have PDPA, we talk about data protection, so we have to abide. And there are some other standards that we can abide and comply to. And another important thing when it talks about transparency is about the policy surrounding it. You can have many policies, but if you do not have clear communication to the right stakeholders, what is it about? There's no point. So the idea is to have how can you ensure that people know that the data that you collected, the data that you processed, the data that you stored are secure and things like that. So the point is the clear communication of the policy. The third point is about, when it comes to digital trust, it's about the digital availability and of the product. For example, if you are selling something online, right, you have to be sure that the moment I click on something, then I want to be sure it's bought. I don't have to wait like buffering and then, so that kind of performance and uptime is critical to give trust to the consumers. And I think another point on that is that when it comes to selling things, because we are all buy things online, right? I recently I got a text message like there's a 8 August, Lazada sale, and then so we want to be sure that whatever we are doing this online, we want to be fast and secure. Last but not least, I think we have to look from the continuity perspective. So if something is down, that you cannot have a long time of downtime. You have to be very short and fast. Yeah.
All right. And now, please look as you see the screen. You should be seeing the screen there, but suddenly I see this screen over here. It says, join us at slido.com. So if you have questions, please scan the barcode, ask your questions so that we can then answer your questions afterwards. We're going to move on to building and sustaining trust. But I want to get some audience participation right now. So how many people in the audience has had in the past month, let's say, received some communications that you feel is suspect? Whether it's a text, whether it's an email, whether it is an outreach, whether it's a chat group that says 70 people suddenly wants you to participate in an investment scheme, etc. How many people, just by a show of hands, have received such outreach? Oh, so it's actually a minority, very small number. The rest of you, you don't check your emails, you don't check your, or you're just shy about raising your hands. How many people know someone who actually has fallen victim to a scam? I raised my hand as well because I know some people who have done that. People who are smart. These are not uneducated people. These are educated people, smart people, and yet because it's about emotions, it's about the ability to manipulate your feelings that lead to such disaster, if I can talk about that. So part of that is this cultural, behavioral part of us, meaning that we want to believe in people. We want to believe that our fellow citizens, our neighbors, our friends, etc., are people we can trust. So, and you know, we have corporations that do these trust building exercises, the ones where they ask you to close your eyes, lean back, and someone will catch you. Shall we try that today? No, just in case. Better not. I know as Lena is nodding her head, but. So, I want to start by going back to the panelists and saying, what are the aspects of culture, of behavior that you feel are impediments to Malaysia and or we need to overcome? Let's start with culture and behavior, and then we move on to other aspects of that. In order that we can build trust and then sustain it. Eric, can we start with you, please?
I think from the behavior perspective, human nature is always, have the tendency to, to get something for free, right? So the emotion part that Dato' Dan was talking about is this is where, the scammers or those people that is, having a bad intention would look at those human nature weaknesses. And then that's where, these people, even though they are educated, they are technically sound even, may still fall under the trap of scammers, right? So from the cultural perspective, I think Malaysia, being a multiracial country, multi-religion, I think we have different value system, but again, trust is beyond those. Is about, how comfortable are you using the digital services, regardless of the background you're from, or the race or religion. And I think the trust model that we should look at as Malaysians should be a common ground where all the stakeholders and within the ecosystem can collaborate to protect the interests of the entire Malaysian and also the people living in this country.
All right. Cik Wan, I want to ask you, what are the barriers that could prevent such trust from being built, and how can we overcome this so that we can be on a journey towards greater trust in the digital space?
Yep, thank you. So I think one thing that very important in terms of barriers in building digital trust is that our resistance to change. How easy for us to change, like a change management, so to speak. And how do we overcome this resistance to change? It's clear it's about having more awareness and transparency, getting people educated about to do things. What is digital trust? And the whole ecosystem is about it. So that is one thing about the challenges or the barriers is that we do not want to change. We simply trust things. Like, for example, it's not that we don't have rules that, you ask for an IC and then, there are rules and there are some awareness, but people just don't want to believe in that. And that's a problem. And if you allow me, moderator, I think, and because I know we're towards the end, and I started this thing of talking about something about ethics, ethical. If you allow me, then I want to go further, a bit more further about. It's also related to the challenges and resistance as well. I remember Eric talk about the definition of digital trust from the World Economic Forum definition. And if you look at the World Economic Forum digital framework, you will see there are 4 pillars. And one of the pillars is about the inclusive, ethical, and responsible use. And this is something that I want at least everybody in this audience take away from today's panel forum, is that the ethics and the responsible use when it comes to us when we deal with the digital world. The question is, where is our ethics when it comes to using the digital space? We can claim, we all claim like we are all good citizens, right? But indirectly, we are really bad netizens when it comes to cyberspace. We've seen lots of cases about cyberbullying, all this emotional and mental torture and whatnot. It comes from us that are here. We are all adults, we are all professionals, we are technologists, we are also family, we are also a parent, a mother, a father, we have children and things like that. Where is our ethics, or in Malay, adab, when we deal in digital workspace? I think this is something that we have to start pondering and start educating, reaching out for more awareness. How can we become good citizens and also good netizens as well? And another point is about accountability and responsibility. You cannot run away in terms of responsibility, because we call all these keyboard warriors, right? Because they don't feel responsible. It could be people here like ourselves, because we feel we are very responsible person, but when it comes to digital world, we become very restless. We become bad people. We just type things that we hurt people and things like that. It's just two different worlds, kind of different personality in that space. So which is an issue. So I would like to at least address now that we have to start thinking beyond the technology, as what Muru has said, it's a technology, it's process, as well people as well. Start thinking, how can we become better netizens? Yeah.
Thank you. Muru, I want to move on and take the opportunity to plug a question from the audience as well. Should Malaysia establish a comprehensive digital trust framework to enhance security of online transactions and safeguard sensitive data? Because that's part of building trust as well.
Obviously, the answer is yes. And I think we've more or less started the journey now with, you can see over the last 6 months, the Cybersecurity Act was passed in Parliament. The amended PDPA was also passed in Parliament. Long overdue for both, but better late than never. I know that the data sharing policy is also going to be tabled in Parliament. So agencies start working with each other. I think that's one of the issues we've been having in terms of data protection, because everything has been in silo. So I think we have already started the thing moving, and I'm sure at the end of the day, there will come a point of time where you actually have to set up a proper framework where everything falls under one aspect of it. And I think building a framework like that will require 4 pillars: security, privacy, transparency, and the responsibility. So I think security, I would probably say that's where cybersecurity comes in. Privacy is where the data protection part comes in. The response part is where what one Razaimi was mentioning just now, because it's the post-breach that is actually more important. So how are we actually responding to it? Is there a proper business continuity plan? How quick can we come back? Basically building our resilience. And the last part is transparency, which is, I think, a major weakness at the moment. I wouldn't say it's a Malaysian problem. I think it's quite common in quite a number of countries, because messaging is extremely important. Who controls the narrative is crucial when you're talking about digital trust. So you need to actually come out there and message people, because and it has to be quick, it has to be structured, and it has to be convincing. Unfortunately, that's not the case today. Today, typically, if there is a breach of trust, the people who are actually responsible is normally met with a denial. So denial seems to be the first pillar of a post breach. It never happened, and then the shifting of blame, and then eventually, once everyone in the coffee shop starts talking about it, and everybody else in the country knows it's happened, then there will be a very reluctant acceptance. The accountability part is obviously secondary. So I think that's where the new acts have coming in, and to actually start creating an ecosystem of accountability. So I think that's very important. But definitely, we need to start looking at a very comprehensive digital trust framework, and it's a multi-stakeholder journey. It can't just be. So it has to be a very there has to be. I think the public-private partnership in the digital world is still lacking. I think that needs to be more structured. And I think if they work together, I'm sure we will be able to. Malaysia is taking the Asian Championship next year. So it may be another discussion, is something maybe that we can lead and set the standard for everyone else in ASEAN.
Okay, thank you for that. Now, one more question from the audience. That goes, by being transparent, we are exposing more and providing more windows of opportunity for data to be abused. How would that improve digital trust? I'd like, Karthik, if you can take that, please.
Sure. So I think when we talk transparency, it's not about our data being transparent. I think it's the opposite of privacy. When we say transparent, we're talking about the transparency of the ecosystem. People should be able to see what happens when they do a digital transaction. They should be able to have a trust in that everything is being done the right way, that somebody is looking at it. So some of the laws that we're talking about, like a PDPA law, effectively talks about how data is going to be safeguarded, how privacy is enhanced. And that is transparency. That's transparency for the end user, because they know that every business and every part of the government is going to adhere to certain basic principles. I think that's the transparency we're talking about. I do want to just go back to one interesting piece that we started off the last round on scams and the cultural aspects of why scams happen. And there's a very interesting example. And sometime towards this probably end of 23, there was a news article that I read, and I'm going to narrate the article. I'm keen to see the reaction. There was a lady in Japan who transferred about $30,000 to an individual. And this was a person who claimed that the person was stuck in the International Space Station and they wanted money for landing rights to come back to Earth so that he could marry her. Okay? Now, this is real. The person actually transferred about $30,000 to the person. Money was never seen again. The person is never seen again. Maybe still stuck on the International Space Station. But two interesting things happened. I think the reaction that most of the audience had was they laughed. It's a natural reaction. I did when I first read the news, but it got me thinking. And one of the reasons why people don't talk about what happens in scams and the fact that it spreads so much is because people feel embarrassed talking about how it actually got them. And when you think about how scams are perpetuated, it basically relies on the most fundamental of human emotions. It's greed, it's fear, it's altruism, right? And when these three emotions are triggered, people automatically lose themselves in the process, and they do whatever they're being asked to do. And I think it's not specific to Malaysia, it's not specific to the US, it's not specific to anywhere. These three emotions are the cornerstone for most scams around the world. And there's a lot that can be done from a customer education perspective of what and how these three emotions are triggered. And I want to finish with this piece around two interesting examples I learned about experience. So this was a panel on digital trust that I was there last year. And Piyush Gupta, the CEO of DBS Bank, he actually narrated an example. The DBS app, when you make a transfer to another person, previously it used to basically say, yeah, transfer done. And apparently a lot of people felt very uneasy about it because they actually felt that it wasn't actually happening or that it was not happening in the right way. So now if you do a transfer, there is a paper plane that actually moves from one place to the other, takes about 2-3 seconds to go across the screen and says, yes, transfer completed, right? Very fundamental to digital trust. It's about customer experience. And the very fact that the visual about something being done by the bank in the background and that everything is safe and secure, somebody has looked at it and the transfer got done is extremely important. And the last piece on the experience bit, this is actually a bank in the Middle East. They tried experimenting with very funny videos when a person was doing transfers, because if they suspected that if it was, let's say, a romance scam, for example, or investment scam, it actually does not make sense calling the person and saying, are you sure you're in love with this person? They're going to say, yeah, absolutely. I love this astronaut. I'm going to transfer $30,000. But when a funny video comes up saying, hey, you know, my neighbor did this and they got scammed, and this person did this, they got scammed, are you sure you're not being scammed? It breaks the routine. So how do you build experiences which break the routine when it comes to scams is, again, another huge area which is getting pretty interesting.
Thank you. That's interesting because my experience was that in 2008, I'll never forget it. My bag, which had my valuable item, my computer, was lost, was stolen at KLIA. So today, I decided to do a trust experiment. I left my bag with a valuable item right somewhere there, Cheroshdi. So it's a trust experiment. I expect that when I go back, my valuables will still be there, and we'll see what happens. I'll tell you about that afterwards. Now, I want to move on to technology and the role of technology. We have a few more minutes. We're in close, strong technology. And this is going to be open up. Anyone can, in the panel, can just respond. We've seen blockchain. We've heard about things like how Bitcoin and the ledger and all of those wonderful things can bring about a change in which transactions can be more secure, it's not breakable, and all of those great things. So without specifying what form of technology, what are the challenges that, as well as opportunities that emerging technologies present? Anyone is free. It's open to anyone who wants to speak up.
Yeah, maybe I'll just start by bringing up the AI aspect, as an emerging technology, since this is a hot topic. So, AI can be used for wonderful things, as everybody knows, right? But also being used by the cyber attackers, creating bots that can, to do scams, to get people, compromised. But at the same time, how do you then counter the AI-driven cybersecurity risks? So the irony is AI is also the answer, right? So you need an AI to counter the AI. So just now we talk about deepfake, face swapping, imitating the voice. Normal human being will not be able to differentiate, or it's hard to differentiate. So you need an AI engine built to govern the cyberspace to identify the fake or the, those kind of scam-driven activities. So interestingly, you need technology to protect, to govern, and to monitor the cyberspace. So AI is being used to counter the AI-driven malicious activity.
Yeah, if I can add something to that, I think, yes, this is one way we can move forward by innovating technologies, adapting to these technologies of blockchain and artificial intelligence. And it's very important to know that while we can actually leveraging on these technologies as part of digital trust ecosystem, we have to be very wary as well that they come with vulnerabilities as well, meaning that it's not free from vulnerabilities. It's not like when you say, oh, I'm using blockchain technology, I'm using AI, and therefore it's secure. It's nothing like that at all. It goes back to what we have at the moment. Everything that you have, operating system and whatnot, they come with vulnerabilities. Similarly, when people develop new technologies, new applications using blockchain and whatnot, for example, I'm sure people have these crypto applications, right? buying some Bitcoins and whatnot. And these applications, they are also vulnerable to certain vulnerabilities. So just be wary. While it is important to adapt technologies moving forward in digital world, we have to play our part as well in securing these technologies.
Okay, I'll actually talk about four, and I'm going to do it very quickly. One is AI, obviously. It's a cornerstone of most of our security solutions, but it's also something that we're seeing more and more of the other side using as underlying technologies. Obviously, there's pros and cons to how we need to use AI to beat AI, as I said. The second technology is quantum computing as it evolves. It's a fundamental technology which goes back to the roots of how digital transactions are secured, which is through cryptograms. And if cryptography can be broken, it's a fundamental problem. So as the other side tries and says, how can we break it? We are in the process of trying to figure out how can we keep making cryptographs more and more secure. The third technology is blockchain, has huge implications from a privacy perspective, both positive and negative. As an underlying technology, phenomenal in terms of having to be able to maintain privacy. But we've also seen the misuse of privacy from blockchain transactions, especially on Bitcoins and other tools that are available. And the last piece is IoT. I think you talked about it in the beginning, 75 billion devices that are expected. I did a stock count of my own house, and I counted in a family of 3 people, we had 20 devices that are connected to the internet, which can make payments. I'm not even talking connected to the internet. I'm talking connected to the internet and making payments, Apple TV to phones, to iPads, to laptops, to everything else. That's a huge vector from a trust perspective. It is huge in terms of making life simple and building digital journeys, but extremely critical that it's secure so that trust can be maintained. So,
and a huge business as well. Imagine the number of digital certificates that can go into all of these devices. Muru, I want to quickly, because we talked about that in the green room earlier, the post-quantum computing scenario. Could you address that when quantum computers can easily break a cipher that would have taken a normal computer maybe 1,000 years? Here, you can do it in hours. So technology can bring wonderful things, but can also perhaps create a disaster in digital trust.
So I think you just answered the question. It is frightening because I think technology is moving at such a, we're already talking about quantum now. AI is already becoming what do you call I wouldn't say obsolete, it's already become, it's now moved on to Gen AI. And then, now everyone is already talking about quantum. But I think before we even speak about all that, I think that's where I go back to what I said earlier. We need to have the governance in place. So even if you're talking about crypto and blockchain and all that stuff, eventually it needs to be regulated. And I think that has to be built from day one. So conferences nowadays, people have started talking about shifting left and actually building security. They call it AppSec, building security from day one. It's no more part of the journey, but it's actually the starting point. I think I just want to say that there are two areas we've not touched today. Digital trust is no more just about we trusting the system and being part of an ecosystem. It is also becoming a fundamental requirement under ESG. So it's also becoming an investment decision today. So if you are going to look towards the future and looking at attracting quality investment, we have to start building a digital trust ecosystem. So I think ESG is not something we can run away from. We can only delay the inevitable, but I think it's happening. And the other thing I want to say is that we often leave out, I think the discussion at the education level is not happening. I think a lot of these things need to be now starting to be introduced at school levels. I'm a firm believer that most of our mindset or most of our thinking is normally built during the ages of 12 to 18. So when we grow older, we tend to still have that characteristics. We may just become a bit more refined, but who we are is defined within that age group. So I think a lot of discussion on digital trust, on cybersecurity, on cyber hygiene, ethical use of social media, the dangers of sharing too much information is not happening at that level. So I think that's where I think the education system needs to also come into the ecosystem and start talking to the industry, because I'm sure
all of us here have experienced this statement, I just can't find the right people. But we don't seem to want to solve it or address the matter. But it's a standard. If you go out there to speak to any company out there, they'll say, we just can't seem to find the right people. So I think that's something we need to discuss.
Oh, you will. I'll give you a chance to cover up in the wrap up because we are running out of time. I want to quickly say, let's go to the vision for the future. And I'm going to start. I think that's the signal that we are running out of time. So I want to incorporate a final question from the audience as well in your wrap up for a vision for the future. Building trust requires understanding of uncertainty. Intelligence is key to addressing uncertainty. How does government address cyber intelligence? So use that as part of your wrap up with regards to vision for the future as well. So let's put in the future, how does government address cyber intelligence?
Thank you, Dato'. I think that the question is probably not directly related to the future of digital trust, but nonetheless, just a quick one on, you mentioned about post-quantum cryptography. I think it's important to know that in Malaysia, we do have national cryptography policy, whereby one of the pillars within that policy is that we're addressing quantum cryptography. And we in Cybersecurity Malaysia, we do have, we actually handling that and we have some initiatives towards that, just to inform so that people know that in the arm of the quantum cryptography or post-quantum cryptography, there are initiatives that have been driven already. Okay, coming back to I think the question is about I think cyber intelligence, I think. Yes, in anything that you do, cyber intelligence is very important. And the problem with cyber intelligence is that not everybody will have access to it. And then you would rely on some information. And this information could be false and could be then true. So I think moving forward, there wouldn't be a platform whereby an information sharing or trusted information sharing is there, maybe facilitated by an authority that public can be participating and become the members of it and have first-hand access to intelligence. And to wrap up some of this, our digital trust forum today, I think from my perspective, one of the things that we need to do moving forward or to the future in building digital trust, there are a couple of things. First, we need to build the culture of digital trust, because in everything that we do, it starts with a culture, it starts with a norm. If it's something's new and awkward, you wouldn't fall to that. But if you start building culture of trust, culture of digital trust through certain means, regulations, standards, policies and whatnot, then slowly but surely you will go towards that. The second one, I think, is more about prioritizing the data protection. I think when it comes to digital world, everybody is very worried about their personal data. And then if you make effort to prioritize and telling people that your data is the utmost important to us, and these are the regulations, these are the ones that we have done to secure them, then it will build that trust moving forward. So at least those are the 2 points that, and for the future of digital trust.
All right, thank you. Eric, we're going back to this original order. Eric, can you just do the final word that you have?
Okay, so I think as the world is moving towards digital prosperity, they call it, right? So we are more and more relying on the digital services. The only way to gain the digital trust is to work closely, between the public and the private sector to have a common framework, a common platform where we collaborate, where we share, the experiences, suggestion, feedback, and also come up with a framework that we can execute, we can measure and monitor, so that we can, build a better digital future for all of us. Thank you.
Yeah, so talking about cyber intel, I think that's one area which goes back to one of the discussions around public-private partnership. I think industry, private and public-private need to come together in terms of being able to share what they know about what's happening in the cyber security world. And then having fusion centers at a country level, at a region level, at a corporate level become very important in terms of being able to collate the cyber intel that everybody has in terms of what's happening around them. So that's one. There are lots of things. And again, this is my two things that I just want to go back to. I think when we talk about digital hygiene, cybersecurity, digital trust, it still comes down to two factors. One is the realization that it's about people. I don't know if I'm quoting this right, but I believe 80% of cyber hacks still come from leaked passwords through phishing attacks, right? You can do anything you want in terms of securing ecosystem. If somebody clicks on the wrong link and sends out that ID and password, your company is at risk. Therefore, those are absolute fundamentals. So how do you make sure that you fix the fundamentals? Of course, you're going to keep investing in technology, but it finally comes down to what you can do in terms of the fundamentals. And the second piece is, we don't live in a place where we can just control our own ecosystem. We live in a world where we're all interconnected. Therefore, how do you manage your ecosystem of partners, vendors, suppliers? How do you make sure? How do you have an evaluation process? Because every one of them has a backdoor entry into your systems. Therefore, how do you make sure that the cybersecurity of your entire ecosystem is secure? And that's obviously coming from a business that runs as a network, which brings 100 million merchants and 20,000 banks together. That's one of our fundamental thought processes at any point of time. How do you secure an ecosystem? And that's something that every business should start thinking about, because we're no longer just one company trying to safeguard. It's not one fort. It is a fort around an entire ecosystem that we need to build. So,
Muru, your drop mic last word.
Last word, I want to just keep it human. Very quick story. I was at a forum at a college recently, and this was during the peak of the introduction of Padu, which became a massive, what do you call, I don't need to speak about it. I was one of the first people to speak out against it anyway. But I think the problem with Padu was the messaging. So there was actually a student who got up, and he was pretty, agitated, and he said, "I'll never trust the government with my data. Why should I trust the government?" So then there were two speakers there. I actually volunteered. I put up my hand and I said, "Can I take?" I was not a speaker. I was actually in the audience. So I just asked him. I said, "Young man, do you have Instagram?" He said, "Yes." "Do you have Facebook? Do you use Google? Are you a member of Watsons and all this kind of stuff?" "Yeah." "Okay, then I don't need your permission to get your data." So you see, you look at the irony of it. We seem to trust everyone else, but except our own government. So I think there has to be a middle ground. We need to start working together, because it is our government. We are Malaysians. So I think trust is two ways. So I think not everything we have to be anti-establishment. I think that's key. So I think that's what I want to leave at. And education is extremely important. I think we need to start talking to the younger generation, because they are the future. So I think that's pretty important.
All right, thank you. So we are really at the end, and I will do a final experiment. Those who can, please join me in standing up. It's a trust experiment. Those who can, if you are incapacitated or you're unable to, you don't have to. Okay. Now, I want to see how fast you can clap as one. So can we just start now? I'm going to time you. Go ahead. Clap as one. Clap as one. Not clap once. Clap as one. That's all I'm going to say. Clap as one.
1, 2, 3. There you go.
Thank you. You took about 15 seconds. Thank you for being a wonderful audience and for giving us the standing ovation. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Dr. Dan, for leading this panel discussion, and thank you to our panel for a robust discussion. Please remain on stage as I welcome Encik Roshdi, Chief Operating Officer for Cybersecurity Malaysia, to present a token of appreciation to our panel. Encik Roshdi, will you please come on stage? And we'll start giving the token of appreciation to, first of all, our moderator, Dato' Dan. Thank you. Let's give a round of applause to Dato' Dan as he led a very well, robust discussion. And thank you. And Injiroshi can proceed to pass the other token of appreciation to the rest of the panel. Panel, gentlemen, could you stay on stage? Perhaps we can have a last photo session together right after the token of appreciation has been passed on. Round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. All right, it seems that we got all of them have the token of appreciation. Could you please stand together, gentlemen, so that we have a photo opportunity? Wonderful. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you. Thank you. You may take your seats right now, gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for our panel. Another round of applause. Ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion, the journey towards a thriving digital economy in Malaysia hinges greatly on the foundation of trust. And as we strive to leverage technology for progress and inclusivity, building and maintaining trust among all stakeholders is paramount. We want to thank our speakers for an enlightening discourse on building trust in Malaysia's digital journey and look forward to applying these principles to chart a path towards a prosperous digital future for all. Ladies and gentlemen, we would like to invite all participants to visit the Cybersecurity Malaysia booth and take part in our digital trust survey to receive our special gift. Our booth is at level 1. And to those joining the closed door dialogue session on adaptive security measures for emerging digital technologies, you can proceed to hall 7, mezzanine at level 3M. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, we conclude this morning's forum. And for those attending the executive track comprehensive approach on cyber resilience, please stay at this hall as we will begin shortly. See you in a short while. Thank you. Thank you for your participation.
Hello? Yeah.